Hi, everyone. I hope you're having a grounded and grateful day so far. I wanted to hop on here to talk about romantic relationship today and the concept of the math of relationship. When we enter relationship, we can really be a part of three different equations, and that's what you see on the screen here. 1 plus 1 equals 3, 1 plus 1 equals 1, or 1 plus 1 equals 2. And in this video, I am going to speak to what contributes to each equation, what you can do if you find yourself in a 1 plus 1 equals 1 or a 1 plus 1 equals 2, and what makes a 1 plus 1 equal 3 healthy and secure ground for a flourishing long-term relationship. When we talk about 1 plus 1 equals 3, the fact that that doesn't quite add up is that the sum is greater than the parts, and that's due to the creativity and generativity of a healthy, secure relationship where each individual can maintain their individuality and they can partner together to create a third entity, which is the relationship itself. So when 1 plus 1 equals 3, we have that 3 number because there is one individual, the second individual, and then the third entity, which is the relationship. When we look at 1 plus 1 equals 1, which does not work, is there is an over closeness in that relationship. So what pops out on the other side of the 1 plus 1 is just a 1 because both the individuals lose themselves and all that's left over is the relationship. Now, if we look at 1 plus 1 equals 2, that equation happens because both individuals maintain their individuality. There's one person, the second person, but there is never that third entity. The two partners don't actually collaborate to create the third entity, which is the relationship. So, just a couple asterisks before we dive deeper into these concepts. The first is that this is just a model, and if this model helps you map out your current relationship or previous relationships, great. And if it doesn't, please take what's useful and dispose of what is not. The second asterisk that I want to bring up here is that it is likely that your relationship that you're in now or previous relationships that you've had do not just land in one of these equations, right? There are probably times within a single relationship that feels like 1 plus 1 equals 3. And then there are other times in that same relationship that maybe feels like 1 plus 1 equals 1. So it is not absolute. It takes continuous work, communication, collaboration to maintain a 1 plus 1 equals 3, where both individuals are free to be themselves and they also contribute equally to the beautiful flourishing of a romantic relationship. So now I'm going to talk about each equation in a little bit more detail about why 1 plus 1 equals 1 and 1 plus 1 equals 2 are not where we want to be, and why 1 plus 1 equals 3 is where we want to be, and also how masculine, feminine energy dynamics work within each equation. When we're in a 1 plus 1 equals 1, this is the manifestation of a codependent relationship where you need one another. There are all these romantic phrases that seem fun and seem deep on the surface, like, I need them, or they're everything to me, or they are my entire world, or I don't know what I would do without them. And those are actually immature statements of a codependent relationship of a 1 plus 1 equals 1. There is an over closeness in this relationship that creates a merging within the two individuals. There is a lack of boundaries so that each partner actually becomes one another. They want to do everything together. They are willing to sacrifice themselves for the happiness of the other partner. This is also where people pleasing happens. Real quick, I want to say that It's also possible in relationship that one partner is having an experience of 1 plus 1 equals 1, for example, and the second partner is having an experience of 1 plus 1 equals 2. So each individual partner might be having a different experience of the relationship. What can also happen in a 1 plus 1 equals 1 is enmeshment, where we are overly concerned with the needs of our partner. And what happens through that is that we are stripped of our own awareness of what we need. Our needs become the needs of our partner. We stop being able to draw emotional boundaries between where our feelings start and where theirs begin. And 1 plus 1 equals 1 is also where anxious attachment happens. We are constantly afraid that that person will leave us or be abandoned. And so we're doing everything we can to keep that person around. And often what happens is that to make that happen, to keep them around, we abandon ourselves. There's a lack of skill in being able to hold ourselves and hold our partner. Now, when we look at the masculine feminine dynamics of that 1 plus 1 equals 1, and a brief note on the masculine feminine dynamics. So, masculine and feminine are not innate to genders. Men are not 100% masculine, women are not 100% feminine. We have both energies within all of us. So, typical masculine qualities, healthy masculine qualities are assertiveness, decisiveness, leadership, going out and getting it. And typical healthy feminine qualities are receptivity, surrender, nurturing, care. So we both have all of those things within a healthy relationship. But usually, the woman or the person who identifies as female has more of those feminine qualities. And usually, the man or the person who identifies as male has more of the masculine qualities. So let's look at how these masculine feminine dynamics play out in a romantic relationship. So in 1 plus 1 equals 1, typically the man outsources his inner feminine to the woman, meaning that he no longer provides that yin feminine energy to himself. He stops nurturing himself entirely and places 100% of the feminine responsibility onto his woman. And what this feels like is the woman feels like she has to mother her man. On the other side of that, what happens for a woman in a 1 plus 1 equals 1 is she outsources her inner masculine to the man. So she's no longer keeping herself accountable and disciplined. She's expecting her male or masculine identified partner to do all of those things for her. So what that feels like for the man is that he is taking care of his little girl or playing that father role, which we can see how that is unhealthy in relationship. So somebody in a 1 plus 1 equals 1 cannot take care of themselves. They can't provide all of their needs through inner resourcing, and they take on too much responsibility and blame. They shoulder things that are not theirs to hold. They blame themselves in an attempt to lighten the load on their partner. All right, let's look at 1 plus 1 equals 2. So in 1 plus 1 equals 2, remember what this equation means is that both partners maintain their individuality, but neither actually contribute to the creation of the third entity, which is the relationship. So what this looks like is hyper independence. Neither partner, or I'd rather say a partner who's experiencing a 1 plus 1 equals 2 relationship, doesn't feel safe or drawn to attract and ask for support from their partner. They feel like they have to take on 100% of responsibility for themselves. They're usually afraid of enmeshment. They're usually afraid of losing themselves in relationship. Maybe it's happened before, so this is their way of compensating. So they set excessive boundaries. A healthy boundary is one that leads to more love. An excessive boundary is one that leads to a lack of connection and love. So, in their attempt to maintain their independence, they actually close off to their partner. The attachment style that's living in a 1 plus 1 equals 2 is an avoidant attachment. This means that they aren't as open with the way that they are feeling or even sharing about how their day has gone. They aren't open to accepting support from their partner. And in conflict, they usually shut down or look elsewhere outside of their relationship. Now, if we look at the masculine feminine dynamics that are occurring within a 1 plus 1 equals 2, if it's a man experiencing the 1 plus 1 equals 2, he will reject the support of his partner. He will push her away and get the majority of his needs met outside the relationship. It is likely that he doesn't believe he can be seen and fully honored by a woman in his fullness and his authenticity. And it also might be hard for him to take the lead in the relationship and also lead in vulnerability, to be the permission slip in the relationship for her to share vulnerably with him. For a woman experiencing 1 plus 1 equals 2, she's going to reject masculine support. She's going to get the majority of her needs met outside of the relationship. Maybe she's hyper masculine. Maybe she's really type A, really task oriented. And in that space, there's not much room left over for romantic connection. So this woman, maybe due to her history, does not believe she can rely on a man, and it's hard for her to soften into her feminine and surrender to his lead. So a partner in a 1 plus 1 equals 2 rejects the support of his partner and rarely takes responsibility in the relationship. What that looks like, not taking responsibility, is I'm taking care of everything on my side of the house. My doorstep is clean. The difficulties in this relationship must be yours. It must be your fault because I've paid such close attention to myself. Everything must be good on my end. What's actually happened in that the close attention they're paying to themselves, they're not paying any attention to actually building a relationship. And so the conflict in the relationship is partially their responsibility. Now, the place that we want to get to, the place that we want to nurture and nourish is the 1 plus 1 equals 3. Now, remember, in this relationship, each partner maintains their individuality and they both collaborate and commune to create this third entity, which is the healthy relationship. So, this looks like co creation. That means both individuals take responsibility for what is theirs in the relationship. They speak their needs, emotions, boundaries. They respect and honor the emotions, needs, and boundaries of their partner. And what happens is that this third entity gets created, which they're both watering and contributing to. In this kind of relationship, there are healthy boundaries. So, healthy boundaries create the container for more love to flourish. Unhealthy boundaries set a sanction limiting love in the relationship. Healthy boundaries are spoken, they're communicated, they're agreed upon. Also, in a 1 plus 1 equals 3, we are experiencing constructive conflict. A relationship without any overt conflict or confrontation is a red flag that you are in a 1 plus 1 equals 1 relationship. Everything seems to be all good, but the reality of that is that everything's being swept under the rug because of that anxious attachment. There's a fear if any conflict occurs, they'll be abandoned. But in a 1 plus 1 equals 3, there is constructive conflict. There are difficult conversations, honest, that eventually result in a deepening of intimacy. Now, the conflict that we see in a 1 plus 1 equals 2, there is conflict in a 1 plus 1 equals 2, but it is rarely productive or constructive because anyone experiencing a 1 plus 1 equals 2 relationship is unlikely to take responsibility for their contribution to a relationship rupture. Also, in 1 plus 1 equals 3, you are experiencing secure attachment. You're experiencing security within yourself. You're experiencing a trust in something greater, that should this love progress and become a lifelong thing, beautiful, and should it not, you are secure within yourself to trust that the next partner, that love will always, always find you. So let's look at the masculine feminine dynamics of a 1 + 1 = 3. So since this is more a co-creation, there's no separation. So both partners are accepting responsibility for themselves and their fair share of the relationship. So they are not overburdening themselves in an attempt to protect their partner. They are able to discern what's actually their responsibility. They hold themselves and each other accountable. Nothing gets swept under the rug. Their feelings, desires, and needs are shared openly. And what has to happen there is they must maintain their individuality. In a 1 + 1 = 1 enmeshment type situation, that person will disconnect from their feelings, desires, and needs. They won't know where they begin and end. So in this 1 + 1 = 3, we have the internal awareness to know those things about ourselves, to know ourselves, and we have the courage and the communication skills to express them. Also, within this 1 + 1 = 3, the masculine feminine energies are dynamic and free to dance with one another. That means that the man is not locked into being 80% masculine, the woman's not locked into being 80% feminine all the time. That is, life changes as challenges come, as trips happen, as jobs change, as moves happen. They are able to turn up and down their masculine feminine energies so that they can be teammates and also lovers, right? Those are two different arenas in relationship. Teammates are building a life together, they're collaborating in equality. Being lovers, that romantic, passionate love requires polarity. So it requires the masculine to be at a higher intensity and the feminine to be at a higher intensity so they can connect. The masculine pole is up here, the feminine pole is down here. The closer the feminine partner is here, and the closer the masculine partner is here, the more attraction there will be, the more magnetism there will be. And the last thing about a 1 + 1 = 3 is that those romantic tropes of they're everything to me, I don't know what I would do without them, they are my world, those are actually not part of this equation at all. Both partners know they do not need one another, but they both know that having each other in their lives is a beautiful, beautiful bonus. All right, so next I'm going to talk about what you can do if you're experiencing a 1 + 1 = 2 or a 1 + 1 = 1. So maybe you're in a relationship now, and through this video, some things have resonated and you've noticed, hey, I think I'm experiencing a 1 + 1 = 1 or a 1 + 1 = 2. Or maybe you're not in a relationship now, but you can look at your relationship history and notice a pattern of where you've experienced a 1 + 1 = 1 or a 1 + 1 = 2. So I want to talk about what you can do. So say you're in a 1 + 1 = 1 now, or you've noticed that pattern. And if you're in a 1 + 1 = 1 now, this is not a sign of straight up catastrophe, of you need to end it, you need to leave. I will tell you what you need to do. Number one, if you've noticed that you're in this kind of relationship, please celebrate your new awareness. Awareness is the number one requirement for any type of change in our lives. If I don't notice that this water bottle is empty, if I'm not aware of that, I will never get up to go fill it. If we're not aware of where things are misaligned in our lives, we cannot align them. So number one, celebrate. It's a good thing that you're noticing this. Number two, communicate it to your partner. Hey, I watched this YouTube video, maybe have them watch this with you a second time, and I noticed a few things that were present in our relationship. I noticed that I've been sacrificing my needs in this way. I've noticed that I'm disconnected from actually what I want and need from this relationship. Just tell your partner what you've noticed and why it's important, what makes you want to work on this with them. So have that conversation and see what they're noticing too. Are they also experiencing a 1 + 1 = 3, or are they having a different experience from you? The third thing is to schedule you time. Put it on your calendar at least once a week, probably more, especially as are beginning this change process. You time is just time to spend with yourself. You could sit and stare at a wall for an hour and notice what comes up inside of you. You could look up some exercises to connect with your emotions and practice understanding what those are. You could get outside in nature. Look at the things that you love to do that you stopped doing when you got into a relationship and schedule time for those things. Do this again and again and again. And if your partner is also experiencing a 1 + 1 = 1, encourage them to do the same. Schedule you time for them. And the fourth step, none of this works without this, is checking in consistently. So maybe every 2 weeks you sit down with your partner and you present with, what am I experiencing? Is it still a 1 + 1 = 1? What have I learned about myself in the past 2 weeks? Am I able to be okay with myself in my you time? Am I really enjoying it? Are there needs that have come up in the relationship that I want to express to my partner? Are there desires of things I want to do with them, but I'm unsure if they'd be cool with it? Bring up everything and put it on the table. If we don't check in with this process, it is usually what occurs is that we return to what's familiar, which in this example is the 1 + 1 = 1. So celebrate your new awareness, communicate what you've learned with your partner, schedule you time consistently, not once, weekly, maybe 2 or 3 times a week. And four, check in consistently with your partner about how this is progressing, about how you're reconnecting to your individuality, and how it's impacting the relationship. All right, let's say that you are experiencing 1 + 1 = 2. And remember, this is characterized by a disconnect from your partner. It feels like you're kind of just two ships passing in the night. You enjoy each other, but you're not actually building a life and a relationship together. So if there's a part of you that's feeling like you're in this relationship or that's been your relationship pattern, number one, celebrate your awareness. You'll notice some themes between what to do in 1 + 1 and what to do in 1 + 1 = 2. Celebrate. Two, communicate. Hey, I've been noticing that I am pretty closed off to you, that I don't actually welcome or invite you into my life, that I haven't been taking any responsibility for this relationship. Communicate what you're noticing to your partner. Third, collaborate to create emotional resonance. So, emotional resonance means that you are both experiencing the same emotion, right? You do an activity together, you watch a movie together, you have a conversation or enjoy a meal together that creates the same feeling, right? So, if you both enjoy watching comedy movies and you find one that you both think is funny and you're both laughing during the movie, that will create closeness. You don't even need to talk. You can talk, but as long as you're having an experience of sharing space with one another and you're experiencing the same or similar emotion, it will bring you closer. Another thing that you can do to create emotional resonance and draw more to a 1 + 1 = 3 relationship is make plans together. Dream into the future together. Maybe it's a weekend trip. Maybe it's a date night. Maybe it's a bigger trip. Maybe it's a place that you'd like to live in together. Dream into the future together. That may just be ways that you want to support one another, things that you want to share with one another, things that you want to try together. But try to create space where you are enjoying each other's company and experiencing the same emotion. And the last step, this one's familiar too, is to check in consistently. Every couple weeks or every week, are we experiencing more closeness? Does it feel like we're starting to cultivate the third entity, which is the actual relationship that we are building together? Where are we still closing down in conflict? Where are we not taking responsibility? How are we noticing our partner showing up more for us and for the relationship that we're building? All right, I hope this was helpful, and know that if you identified with 1 plus 1 equals 1 or 2, that all is not lost. In fact, that awareness is something to celebrate, and that you can build to a healthier place of 1 plus 1 equals 3. And if you are experiencing a 1 plus 1 equals 3, celebrate that too, and know that there might be times where you slip into 2 or 1, and that that's okay too. The steps are the same. Celebrate your awareness, communicate. Notice the third step, that was the only one different. And then the fourth step is check in consistently. Communicate with your partner. Do not take for granted that what you're experiencing in the relationship is also what they're experiencing in the relationship. Much love. Catch you on the next one.